Hey again, I wanted to speak in this video a little bit more about the importance of balancing duality and non-duality in terms of the individual person, and the recognition that individuality does not in any way detract from the reality that everything is non-dual and that God is non-dual. That individuality does not diminish God in any way, and therefore there's no reason to think that individuality must be subsumed into a non-differentiated or non-individual infinity, into nothingness, in other words. And you can't get something out of nothing, like we have been discussing. So even in God, there is a distinction between his body and his spirit. Without that distinction, there could not be manifestation. And this is actually going to go to the very heart of my criticism of Jason Giorgiani's position, but I'll dedicate a separate video to that. But in this, I want to compare the Christian view and the Vedic view of the body, the human body, the individual body, and show where our position, or where my position, departs from both. So in the Christian view, we get only one body. We only have one life to live, and in the future we will get that same body back in the resurrection. It'll be a spiritualized body, but nonetheless the same one. It will be reconstituted as a spiritual body. Okay, and then there's the Vedic view. The Vedic view has us reincarnating over and over. We acquire many bodies, many different bodies. And then when we reach the end of that process, and to where we have acquired full self-realization, full enlightenment, that goes away, because again we get subsumed into this void, into this nothingness, into this ocean of infinity. So let's just quickly talk about what's right about both of those views and what's wrong. So in my understanding, in my view, the Christian view is correct in affirming the fact that the body is an essential part of the human person. But it's wrong in thinking that we can only therefore have one body. We can only be in possession of one body. Reincarnating and having many bodies does not make the body less important or less essential to what it is to be a person. But then the Vedic view is also wrong in saying that that the individual is subordinate to the source, in the sense that it has to be swallowed up by the source, to where it can no longer exist in an individuated state. So they both get something right and they both get something wrong. So now how do we resolve that, though? How do we balance, or not balance, but how do we reconcile many bodies, the idea that we acquire many bodies over time, with this seemingly Christian, uniquely Christian notion that the body is essential to the uniqueness of the person? Because if we're talking about the uniqueness of the individual person, wouldn't that suggest the exclusivity of one body? I would say no. Why? Why would it? But I'll unpack this. I'll try to lay this out here in simple terms so that we can kind of see how this unfolds. If we say that the uniqueness of the human person is found solely and exclusively in the divine spirit, God's spirit or mind or nous, which each of us have a portion of, if we say that the essential uniqueness of every human person is rooted in that or discoverable in that actually makes no sense whatsoever, because there is nothing in the divine nous or divine spirit itself that allows us to differentiate one person from another. It's a portion of one spirit of one person, God. So how do you divide that up among many persons and have each of those persons, localized persons, be unique, unless we incorporate the understanding of the body? And not just the body, but the uniqueness of everything, everything that sets that person apart, from the circumstances of their birth, the circumstances of their life, their upbringing, their parentage, their likes and dislikes, their judgments, their decisions, their choices, their actions. You have to bring all of that to bear in order to affirm the uniqueness of each and every person. If you don't do that, then you're back to this, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's ridiculous. It's this ridiculous Vedic notion, as much as there's wonderful ideas in Vedic theology. This ridiculous notion that the self is essentially all that there is, or it's the only thing that's essential to the person, and that everything else are just the conditions. That's what they call our body, our thoughts, our intellect, our emotions, our choices and decisions. All of those things they say are just the conditions that make up this ephemeral, temporary iteration in time of our individuality. And that since they're only conditions, they're going to disappear, go away, dissolve, get subsumed. We've already seen, I don't need to go over it again, I've already explained several times why that doesn't work metaphysically, because again, it goes back to this idea that nothing can come from nothing. You have to have an innate duality in God that constitutes his non-duality, i.e. the singleness of the divine person, in order for God to manifest anything eternally. Because if he himself or herself is non-differentiated, there's no ground or basis upon which God upon which God would be able to manifest anything at all. So the punchline to all of this, the position that I'm taking, is that every body we ever take on as an individual, as a individual projection of God's nous, as he differentiates it and divides it and disperses it throughout this dual realm, is unique by virtue of not just one body, but all of the bodies that it takes on. So what I'm saying is that let's just, for lack of a better term maybe, but I think it's a pretty good term, the memory of each and every body, or the data, quote unquote, that makes up the memory of each and every body we've ever had gets preserved. And I am suggesting that when we have attained the highest level that it is possible to attain spiritually, and in terms of consciousness and conscious awareness, and in terms of ethics, how we live out and embody the truth in its fullness, we will have the ability to holographically, our individual nous will have the ability to holographically project, anytime we desire, any given body that we had at any given time in any given world, when we are with those that we loved in that given lifetime. So depending on the group of ancestors we're with, or we're socializing with, or interacting with, we can take on the body that they are familiar with, the body of the person that they interacted with. So, and I imagine too that we would be able to bilocate and trilocate and take on any number of these bodies simultaneously. So that is my holographic understanding of immortality. Let me know what you think about that. Have a great day.